Thanks. Hey, hello there. Good evening. Good afternoon. Back for the last bit, back for the closing session, and welcome again. I hope you have enjoyed yourself today, but it ain't over yet. We have a few very interesting talks still to go. So let's start sharing my screen. I see there's still a lot of people coming in. Welcome, welcome. Share the screen. There we go. All right, so first off, we have a second presenter here today for a keynote, which is Matt Coolidge. Now, it was fun to see Matt just a few minutes ago when we practiced a bit for this session, because it's been a while. He was here, I think, in one of the first Connectathons. I remember working with him on a mobile app with questionnaires. And I haven't actually spoken to him since, so I'm really looking forward to what he's going to tell for us. So back then he worked at Cleveland Clinic, and now he is working at Orbital Health. So he's still going to tell us a little bit about what went on at Cleveland since hopefully since the last time. So without much further ado, Matt, I'd like to give the word to you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for the intro. Yeah, so I'm going to be speaking a bit about Cleveland Clinic and how we use FHIR to solve some problems related to patient access to care and patient experience. So again, Matt Coolidge, CEO of Orbital Health. I am, 1 second. There we go. So my background, I was formerly IT product director at the Cleveland Clinic. I was also the product owner for a number of different applications and programs. Excuse me. Most importantly was the clinical API platform, and then a number of applications and integrations that sat on top of that platform. One of them being the My Cleveland Clinic mobile application. It's an Android and iOS app. That does have some bits of FHIR in it, and the patient monitoring platform we call Vital Scout. That's a critical clinical patient monitoring application. There's a number of others, and so owned a large collection of different applications and integrations. I'm also, or I was also the FHIR subject matter expert, and kind of acted as an organizational consultant. Not just on FHIR, but a number of different things related to integrations, application developments, agile methodologies. So today we're going to talk about a project that I worked on in 2017, and that was related to Cleveland Clinic and Oscar Health. Oscar is an insurer or payer, and so Cleveland Clinic and Oscar announced a partnership back then. How that kind of impacted my team and the organization, and how we move forward with that. Talk a bit about the ideal state or end state for that integration and the goals that came out of that. Also, a little bit about the high-level technical implementation. I obviously don't have time to go into a ton of details, and then most importantly, the lessons learned from this integration or this project. So back in summer 2017, there was this big announcement, new Cleveland Clinic and Oscar experience. This was interesting for, a number of reasons, but this was, one of the first times that Cleveland Clinic really jumped in and had this really intimate relationship with a payer to have like a co-branded product. And so Oscar is, an interesting and forward-thinking company, insurer. And they wanted to come into the space, and so who better to partner with than the Cleveland Clinic? So it was definitely interesting news and an interesting project, and it made headlines on a number of different sites. So looking at that partnership, what that entailed, was a mix of responsibilities from both sides. For the Cleveland Clinic, we obviously were providing primary care services. We would allow the Oscar patients to select a primary care or PCP from the Cleveland Clinic. They would have full access to, excuse me, the virtual visits via the Express Care Online application, and they would have full access to the Cleveland Clinic provider network. Oscar was still providing their concierge services. This, I believe that's part of their core product. And they would, a patient or a customer in their case, could reach out to their concierge team and ask questions about billing or scheduling or anything like that. And they were on call 24/7, so they could call them, they could chat with them on the site, and they would help them with anything they needed. Some of that included, proactive scheduling, just navigating healthcare. And so Oscar has a team that's built to do that. Oscar also has fantastic experiences for portals and applications. And so that was important, through this integration or this project. We wanted to leverage the stuff that Oscar was bringing to the table, and obviously the financial responsibilities or aspects of the relationship, and them being the payer in this case. So from an integration perspective, this meant a number of things, and we were kind of looking at, like, what's the ideal state? How do what's the best experience for patients, who go through this process? And so we identified a number of areas. The first being that they were automatically registered, so that if they signed up through the payer portal, they didn't have to then go in and register at a Cleveland Clinic location. We wanted them to be, fully automatically registered, in both systems. We also wanted to, so obviously sync demographics, but also insurance information. And so even though the process was starting in the Oscar platform, any information would be synced over to the EHR at Cleveland Clinic. It was important that we also don't create patient duplicates. It's a patient safety issue and operational headache. And so needed to match on patients reliably and then create new patients when no matches were found. There was also a shared provider registry that would have the list of providers that the patients could see, that were within the coverage, and a list of practices and locations. And so we need to have some way to integrate those different lists and systems. And even though it's last, I considered it one of the hardest things to solve was the scheduling. The goal was to allow patients to be within the Oscar platform and self-schedule for appointments. And so that meant searching for appointments, almost like you would search for a restaurant in Yelp or Google, and find, what appointments and slots are available in my area, and then book directly into those appointment slots. And that would be outside the context of any Cleveland Clinic-owned system. And so this was a new integration the organization had never done before. And it was definitely, scope-wise, was a very large aspect of it. So while the scope was very large, the timeline was very tight. As this was a critical, high-priority project, we had to move very quickly. And the announcement happened in June, and that was the first we kind of heard. When I say we, I mean the IT teams. Integration really didn't kick off until September, when we started to really have conversations around what does this mean, what are the expectations here, and that's when we fleshed out these use cases. And that's a bit scary because open enrollment starts in November, and the goal was by the time coverage began in January, any patients that had registered in the Oscar platform would be registered in the Cleveland Clinic platforms. And so, we had to sprint as fast as we could to get patient matching and creation live, by January. In the end, we got it live in mid-December. And I believe there was around maybe 10,000 patients that had registered through there. So not massive in terms of scale of the organization, but pretty large for a project that was moving very quickly. And then by April, we had self-scheduling live, April 2018. So as you'll see, there's a lot to that. And so there was quite a bit of work done in that short amount of time. So for phase one, the patient registration, matching and creation, we were also assigning identifiers. And so we'd have the payer identifier, so that they can be matched. And if we're sending updates, between systems, they can match on those identifiers. It also made it easier for supporting if there were issues, so that if an existing patient was found, we would assign the identifier. It allowed reporting and any number of different advantages. We were also doing data updates, demographics, address, things like that. And from the patient's perspective, what they expected was they would register for this, and then the system is prompting them, do you have a primary care provider? And if they didn't, they would be able to search for a provider and also assign that provider to their PCP assignment. That was something that we were actually doing, in the Oscar platform, and then updating that assignment in the Cleveland Clinic EMR. So, technically that's, like a care team type resource back then. Phase 2, we were looking at the self-scheduling. I still think this was one of the larger aspects of the entire project, because, we still had to do the provider search, but they needed the ability to filter by the availability of the provider, and they needed to be in near real time, because schedules update frequently, and you couldn't have a lag of a couple hours, because appointments may be taken, and it could be frustrating. We had seen where we did have some delays, 30 or 40 minutes, and patients.
Matt, I'm sorry. We don't hear you anymore. Well, then, I guess, Matt, you cannot hear us. That's unfortunate. We're trying to reach out to him, but that's actually pretty hard because I'm not standing behind him. So while we're trying to get in contact with him or fix this, let's see what we can do. Hold on a second.
I'd venture to say that his battery went out on his headset.
I guess it must be something like
Can you
that.
guys hear me now?
Yeah, now we can, but not the
Okay,
last like 4 or 5 minutes or so. So we
I'm
were watching
sorry.
like,
I don't know what happened. Where did I cut out? I can go through the slides real quick.
let me see, yeah, you were talking about this screen about the availability.
Okay. In the patient registration or the
The next
scheduling?
one with the scheduling.
Okay.
Yeah, you were
Um,
basically at this screen.
I don't know what happened, so sorry about that.
That's okay. I mean, it went too well the last 4 days, so we had to have some hiccup.
Yep.
Don't worry.
So I'll go quickly through the rest of them. So let's see. So for the self-scheduling, we needed to be able to query the real-time availability of the providers, which meant, actually looking into the EMR for the open slots and their schedules, looking at any modifiers or logic that they had, and filing the appointments into the schedule, like in the EMR. They also needed the ability to cancel the appointments, and so they could do that within that external platform. So in terms of the scheduling, the reason I said that was a larger chunk of it is because it was, much harder than we kind of anticipated, because all of the scheduling management occurs in the EMR. That means all of the logic is there. There's no single service that we could use, especially no Fire service to query for that availability. And once we started querying for that and displaying it like across the collection of providers, we found that there were like vast differences in scheduling configurations. People were using interesting hacks and workarounds to control their schedule very, very tightly. And so there was a large effort done to consolidate and standardize, all of that scheduling. There was also a lot of cultural resistance to it. People felt that patients shouldn't be able to file directly into their schedule. And so in some cases, they would cancel the appointments, and then notify the patients, or they would be upset when patients would show up and they hadn't spoken to them on the phone. So, even though we were solving the problems technically, there were still cultural, reasons to, or cultural issues that came up. So we also couldn't find a solution for the provider or department interfaces, and that was something that was managed somewhat manually outside the system. Let's see. From a technical implementation perspective, we used Fire for patient, everything with the patient and the appointments. We were using the match operation on patients. It's like a custom operation. And the standard create read updates. Similarly with appointments, we were doing find. You'd pass in a number of parameters, and then we would list a bunch of proposed appointments, and then standard create update. We were using HL7 for events. However, we were mapping those events to Fire. And so we actually had the HL7 version 2 events coming through our interface layer and being mapped to Fire resources and then posted out to Oscar. And so they didn't even have to worry about the HL7 version 2. And unfortunately, there still were those flat files for the provider registry and the coverage information. So the lessons learned, from this project were that, while we were able to solve the technology problems, the cultural changes were probably, and operational changes were probably much larger. And so, the technology can enable this type of experience for patients, but you really needed to change the expectations and the workflows of the providers themselves to improve that access to care. The technology, can bridge the gap, but if the slots aren't available because the schedules are not standardized, or they have modifiers, or they've turned things off, then it doesn't really get you too far. So don't underestimate the amount of operational and cultural hurdles that you may have to overcome. And with that, there were small changes that were made after the fact to the configurations that did have large effects downstream, and that was because people making changes that they felt were minor, actually had this ripple effect and would modify the availability of a large number of providers. So change control is obviously very important there when you're relying on a single system for to be the source of truth. Communication and training are critical, and that's like from top to bottom. Make sure everyone knows what's going on. So key takeaways, and sorry that I dropped off for a little bit. I'm not sure what happened with the audio, but this kind of change requires strong leadership from the top to say this is the direction we're going in, and we need to figure this out. Keep things as simple as possible. Don't underestimate the operational impact, and obviously don't ignore fire. But importantly, build strong teams, and even when it's critical for you to have teams with these kind of capabilities in place prior to needing them, so that when something comes up and it's a priority, you have the teams and the platforms and technologies in place to be able to execute on that. And ideally, you're working with strong partners who feel the same way and can adopt that, the newer technologies or just new ways to work. So again, sorry for the issues with my audio, but I really appreciate everyone's time. And that's it.
All right, thanks, Matt, for telling us what happened since we saw last time. For a moment there, I was really hoping I had asked you for your mobile phone back then, so I could have called you, but that's okay. I think we got the guts of your message, and I think also that we still have a bit of time for the next subject of the evening, which is of course the results of the patient innovator track. And that will once more be led by Dave. So I am almost ready, I think, to switch over to Boston once more because Dave is ready for us.
I love it when that thing that pops up that says the host would like to unmute you. That's like the purpose of my existence, is to see that pop up. Oh boy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the awards for the second edition of the Patient Innovator Track. I need to be sharing my screen or I'm not going to get anywhere with you people. Sooner or later, I will learn this technology. There we go. Okay, so I want to review why we're doing this, why it's become part of the HL7 and fire culture and DevDays in specific. So as it says on the DevDays website, what if technically minded patients had access to their data, right? And you might think that this seems obvious to us, but we just heard how Cleveland Clinic, which prides itself on being one of the more innovative places, has cultural resistance to patients having their hands on anything, and they are certainly not alone. We are here to change that, and I've been thrilled with the contributions of the finalists. We will start with the obligatory review of the beginning of our patient anthem. The goal is to inspire the DevDays audience. A two for the nurse. You saying trying to keep me so to make me feel worse. Give me my damn data. Give me my damn data. Well, your judging panel, and I will ask each of them to pop up in the sidebar screen image and say a brief hello. Virginia Lorenzi from New York Presbyterian Hospital. Ginny?
Hi, everyone. And really liked all the finalists. Really was a call to action. You really inspired us. Thank you.
Terrific. Graham, whoever he is.
Hey, everybody. I'm here. I enjoyed, once again, the patient panel. Thank you so much for being part of it, the participants and the audience. And I think it's a really worthwhile part of DevDays. Thank you very much.
Good. And the man who wrote and directed that video, Ross Martin.
Hey there. Yeah, thank you for letting me be a part of this. Dave had asked me fairly short notice to do this because he had recommended a couple of the participants to join it and needed to pull himself out of judging. So I was so glad to be able to hang out with HL7 folks again, and it's been a while. So thank you.
Yeah, lovely. Welcome back, Ross.
Yeah.
And his contributions in the judging were, not surprisingly, quite valuable. And now, ladies and gentlemen, your 4 finalists. And for the finalists who are waiting in the wings, when I pop up your slide, I will ask you to speak up in the sidebar with a hello. Morgan Gleason, 12 doctors and 23 portals.
Hello. Is this, can you hear me? I don't know if it's working.
Yes.
It's kind of weird. Okay, perfect.
Olivier Caracera, turning paper into fire in Africa.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here again.
Okay. And Bray Patrick Lake, doing this to shine a light into the void. Good luck deciphering all this. Bray?
Hi, thanks everybody so much for the opportunity to speak to you this week.
And the sidebar conversations that are happening now already over on Zulip in the patient empowerment stream. And I don't know if Hamza has arrived, if he's able to be with us. He created a diabetes app for his family. Hamza, are you here or no? I guess not. And so we have 2 awards, and without further ado, I will move on to the People's Choice Award, the result of your voting. Olivier Caracera, turning paper into fire in Africa. Olivier, would you like to say a word or 2 of thanks?
Thank you very much. This is, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to see we are building roads here in Africa and fire is the vehicle. So you are welcome in Africa.
And you will be receiving a $35 gift card to spend to buy yourself a shirt or a coffee mug or something in the Fire gift shop.
Thank you very much.
More importantly, I think you've gotten people to aware of your project, and I'm excited to see how folks are going to jump on top and join you in the effort.
All right.
And the winner of the Patient Innovator track is Morgan Gleason, the $2,500 prize for her 12 patients and 23 portals. Morgan?
Thank you so much. This is really exciting, and I really love this opportunity. It's been really great, and I've loved hearing everyone else's presentations too. Everyone has really good ideas, and I've really loved all the conversations as well. But thank you so much.
Yeah, I think she's likely to be joining us in our patient empowerment work group. Morgan, please tell the people the anniversary that you told me. This is an anniversary day for you, yes?
Yeah, so this is the 10-year anniversary of me being diagnosed with my first autoimmune disease. So I guess this day 10 years ago was much different than how it's going today. But yeah, so it's been a long time, been pretty crazy.
And last night she also shared with me some pretty astounding news. Her presentation, her video was late, and she said she hadn't been feeling well. Morgan, tell the nice people what you learned yesterday.
So yesterday I got the test results back that I am positive with COVID-19. So yeah, I haven't been feeling very well for the past couple days. And especially I was struggling to work on the presentation and get it done in time. But that probably explains why I've been feeling a little bit worse than normal recently.
I just wish we were live with an audience so we could be seeing the audience reaction, because that's, any speaker has to overcome various obstacles, but that's a little abnormal. So certainly hoping that you are doing great.
I mean, I've been better, but this is definitely helping. This is awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Sure. And so to wrap things up, I want to remind everyone that, we can't really say that this is all brought to you by the Patient Empowerment Work Group, but if you've been inspired by the conversations here, I encourage you to come join us on our calls on Confluence on the Zulip stream. We really are working to create that new world where patient data flows in a way that helps achieve HL7's mission. That's it. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll hand it back to you.
Excellent. Excellent, Dave. Thanks for all the hard work over the past 4 days, introducing everyone, collecting all the videos and so on. It's been it's always a wonderful addition. I think we've done it for the last 3 Dev Days now, and I'm happy to have you on, and I hope we can continue to have you on our show for a while. Thanks a lot.
On our show, sure.
All right, let's see what's the rest of the evening. Let me share my screen with you for a sec here, because there's a few things I'd like to show you. You should be seeing the slide with, well, that's another tradition, I mean, in as much as I hope that Dave's patient track will be a tradition and stay a tradition at DevDays. We have one tradition, and that's the closing keynote. So far, DevDays has always been closed by some fatherly words of goodbye and things to think about while we were traveling back intercontinentally. We don't have to do that, but still the words will be welcome by Graham Grieve. And after that, yeah, we were just gonna more or less say goodbye. Now, I told you this morning that that I always find it a bit hard that after we say the closing words, you'll just get that requester saying it's over. So just to be sure that there is something to go on to, if you feel like it after the closing of the show, we can actually join this. I made a bit.ly link. I think in the agenda there will be there will be the real Zoom link to a kind of hangout for afterwards. So if you feel like it and you have nowhere else to go, then please join us at this link after the talks if you want. And I probably told you before, or maybe I didn't, that normally after a real show, of course, there's always a few people left that have no place to go, or they missed their flight or whatever. So at some point at Dev Days, I think 2018 or 17, I took a few of them back home to my place here, and we had wonderful drinks and food. And well, that's the kind of thing we want to offer you instead of having to look at least the meeting thing there. Another one that I was asked to tell you about is, let me see here, the browser, that there is actually a session and speaker feedback form, and it's well hidden under surveys here. I know there's so much information in the app that you can easily miss it. So I've been asked here under surveys to take the survey and provides our feedback to us so we can improve for the next time. While we're at it, I have the live polling results here for the, are we gonna do this in virtual or in person again? And it's been a 50-50 race over most of the day, but it seems like slowly the virtual is winning here. So that's the latest on that. So, all right, then there is nothing left for me to do now. Announce Graham Grieve, and as we all know, he is more or less the founder of the movement that we're part of, and it was a big joy until now, and I hope for still quite a while to be working with him. So I'm really, really happy to introduce and to Graham to you and say, take the floor.
Hi everybody. Thanks. Well, thank you so much. And and I always, as part of this keynote, I always make sure to thank the organizers, and this time is more necessary than usual, I think. I mean, behind the scenes, we have Marita and team, and we have Filey and team with Ewad and Ran, and then we have HL7 team with Mark and Karen and the team. And I feel as though this time was bigger. It was more production because it was a new thing. We hadn't done this before. Such a lot of work. I would, at this point, call for a bigger round of applause, but that seems pretty pointless. I don't know how that works here. If you feel that this was, that you would like to thank the organisers, I guess, is there a place to do that, Ewad? Can we say thanks on Hoover or something? Do we know?
Yeah, there's well, somewhere in Hoover is fine. Just chat somewhere. We'll see it.
Somewhere. There's
Oh,
a feedback to Hoover, but that's not feedback to the organisers. But it's been a wonderful experience for me to see this come together and to see it work. And when we first said, well, we have to do this virtual, it's like, whoa, what does that mean? And I'm just so pleased. So thanks so much. I'm told that we had 750 registered participants from 27 countries. And for me, this is kind of what FIRE's always been about. Is about exploring the boundaries of what we can achieve. What can we do that hasn't been done before, and do it together as an open community. And thanks so much for you who are part of this, who've come to be part of that. And I think that we're getting more important than ever. It's really obvious from world current events that it really matters to get this health stuff sorted. And in fact, if you keep an eye out, you'll see that it's getting more and more difficult for people to collaborate formally. You can see WHO's going to get increasingly difficult as a forum for nations to collaborate, as they blame WHO for their own lack of collaboration. It's going to be ever more difficult and ever more important for us as an informal collaboration organization to continue to function and to continue to function well. And if you've heard me before, you'll know that I say that what we're in the business of doing is creating a public treasure that we have to look after and govern for people to protect their investment. And the keynote, the talks at DevDays have been so, for me, educational and inspirational, and everybody that I've caught has added to my life, and I hope it's been worth it to you. I want to start by quoting Matt: cultural changes take time. And that's what we're about here, and we're building cultural changes. But I think that it's more important than ever. And in fact, looking at the way things are right now, if you want to have money, you need an economy. If you want to have an economy, you need health. If you want to have health at scale, you need HL7, you need fire. So here's a saying for you. I don't know how this one will go, but fire powering the world economy. How about that one for you? Something to think about. But of course, and I knew this would be the case, the keynote that stood out for me was Erika Ochran on language. I'd loved the book. You talked about, getting me to read the book, and really the idea that you have to and you can communicate without knowing the order of the universe in advance is key to us. Language isn't something that's going to be tamed. That's something that really you have to get right as a explorational social process, be part of the club. And we've always let that drive us. And not everybody likes that. It's got its downsides, but for me, it's key that this is an explorational process, and it's driven by the passion of the practitioners. That's you, that's us, to create an idea that the world can be a better place. For me, it's really critical that the patient track makes a critical contribution to that. And I want to thank each of the participants. Morgan, thanks. I think you were inspirational. And for me, the inspiration is always, I had a problem. I thought about the problem structurally, and I created a structure, an infrastructure solution that other people can use to help with my problem. And it requires a choice to choose to think like that. And I really hope that we can leverage those documents you had as examples and leverage them into solutions that can make people's lives better. And I'll be working on that. Bray, I really appreciated your clear description of the problem. And in fact, it made me angry. I'm sorry, but I got angry listening to your problem because it just shouldn't be, it shouldn't happen. It's wrong. And I'll come back to that in a second. Olivia, of all the presentations, you plucked my heartstrings because we so believe that what we're doing can make such a bigger difference in less well-developed healthcare systems because there's less entrenched interests. But we've never ever had really good participation, particularly in Africa. And we'd love to grow and nurture an ecosystem and a community in Africa. And I'll be talking to you more about that because that's critical for me. Hamza, diabetes is it's such a critical thing. But the thing that did grab my attention was that export my data as fire. And I feel as though we kind of need to work on the branding and marketing side of that and the technical spec behind this so that it becomes something that patients go, well, hang on, where's my light my health on fire button so that I can get the data from you and put it in my repository, and then I can build my my consultation documents, the kind that Morgan's building from the information I got from you. Is my life, it's my healthcare. And the viruses come, the lockdown is hard, it's a difficult process to endure, and now we're getting the second phase, and it's like a pressure cooker, and suddenly that's exploded in protests all over the world around Black Lives Matter, and they matter, and I've been thrilled to see it getting attention. My country is no better than, in fact, my country is really interesting because in my country, the comparative problem with the police is not that much bigger, but the comparative problem with the healthcare system dwarfs everything for Black Lives Matter. But you can easily see the anger and that passion, the blowtorch of public anger, turning to the healthcare system when you hear stories like Bray's, because they're not unusual stories. When do we start saying to the healthcare system, stop killing us? But we know that these come out of deep structural problems. There's no easy fix. There's no like magic wand to wave, not for either of these problems. So it's not enough to say or to agree or to support or to protest. Do something. For me, fire is doing something. I said I don't want to stand back and say I could have done something, but I didn't. The healthcare system kills many more of us than the police. And I said, I can do something about that. Fire is about doing something about this. Sarah talked yesterday about us being an open community, about and the challenges and rewards of being an open community. And it's really interesting that we have been always an open community, but we've also been an open community that in the end is banked on physical meetings that you must travel for. And one common discussion that we've had is, as an open community, we're not responsible for, we don't hire, we don't have any diversity hiring policies because we don't hire. You turn up, you become part of the community. Anybody can do that. But we certainly had a tilt towards people with significant funding and stable travel situations, so they could actually come to the meeting. And that certainly tilted against, for instance, mothers participating. So hard to travel. We have some, and they make great contributions, but it's hard. One of the cool things about this virtual meeting is that we can have, there's much less of a price of entry to enter the community. 750 participants is more than we've had before. Of those of you who are not part of our community, who are just here, please evangelize our community. Become part of the community. Tell everybody we're an open community that is doing something really important in the world. And we have many challenges to face, and we can certainly allow anybody is welcome. I worry about representation totally differently, because I'm like, the kind of things that I hear about from a diversity agenda, they don't matter. They're just, you can do healthcare information. It doesn't matter for the classic, color of skin or gender. They don't matter. It's all, we're all able to do healthcare and healthcare informatics. But I do worry about diversity from around the world, from different kind of providers and vendors and software engineers and information researchers and healthcare researchers. And that diversity, that's the one that I really care about and we work on. But everybody is welcome, but there's a challenge that comes for that. Is what are your onboarding processes? I care about our welcome onboard process and welcoming this. If you think that we thought things we could do better, I want to hear about it. But also understand, as a volunteer community, if you think there's things that we could be doing better, you could ask yourself, shall I do those things? Shall I be part of the solution, part of the community to contribute to welcoming and onboarding? And as such, we've been talking about this notion that Sarah talked about yesterday around rewarding the water carrying and the wood building, the wood splitting behavior. And we would like to think more about how to reward community building actions within our community. And I'm also would love to hear if you have ideas around that. So where does all this leave us? The world faces many challenges. It's going to get more obvious through the rest of this year, I think. As particularly, I think that the virus will continue to drive more and more consternation and anger and disruption and hostility and hostilities, and I expect those to escalate through this year. We already saw China and India come to blows this week. There's a lot of challenges, and those challenges are no longer contained to any particular box. And in the end, they all come back to our health, and our wealth depends on our health. And so I think a fire is ever more critical and ever more relevant. I know I live in the fire bubble, but our health matters, and our health is driven partly by availability of information. So get out there and do something to make this world a better place. If everybody sits back and says it's someone else's problem, nobody will do it. So I appeal to you. Go out there and do something. And if that doing something is being part of fire, great. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Everybody is welcome. Back to you, Ewa. Thank you very much for everyone for listening to me rant, as the way I often do in a DevDays keynote.
So, thanks, Graham, for this. It is weird to see you like this. I mean, you're so close, but still I can't tap you on the shoulders, and I really miss doing that. It's been quite a while.
And it's going to be a long while yet. I won't be allowed out of Australia for at least 18 months, I reckon.
Yeah. So we'll just have to wait a little bit longer. But this, I must say, the whole virtual meeting in that sense works better than I expected, because it really feels like we're close. But I just miss seeing you, having you here. Anyway, yeah. I'm also happy for you that I don't know if you need to be happy that I see a light behind you back there, because so far it was dark. I mean, I felt quite a hero when I said that I went on with the pub crawl till 4:30, but you must have been like, yeah, I do that every single morning.
Well, I said, look, there's a few Australians at the conference or coming who've been getting up at 2 or 3 a.m. But that's not that bad. It's only a 3 or 4 hour time zone shift. A couple of people have asked, what is it in my background? I work in a little shed out in the backyard, and I'm in my shed. I slept in the shed overnight so as not to wake my family up.
Ah. Yeah, well, that's good. Is Wayne around, by the way?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
You
Outside,
hear
not
me?
behind it. Not, yeah, sure, not behind the piano.
Well, yes, well, you know, it's always difficult to try to compete with you, Ewald. You know, I ride my bicycle around 20 miles or so in my town, and you take months off to ride the coast of Asia. You sit behind your piano and, you know, play a whole bunch of riffs. I actually do have a piano in the corner of my living room, but it's very dark. Bought it for my daughter when she took lessons. It was a total waste of money. It's hardly ever used and out of tune. And besides, I don't play the piano. So I can't really compete with you there. But I thought, in keeping with the spirit of the meeting, I did happen to find this. It's a Muppet Babies electronic keyboard. And my 20-month-old grandson plays that. It's his favorite toy when he comes to visit. And so I'll play a little tune on that. By the way, this is a different angle from my garden. You can see, I'll get out of the way. It's from the other edge of the property. It's a lovely day anyway. I didn't want to be inside, even if I could play the piano, which I can't. So let me see if I get this right. The other problem with this, it's got baby slime all over it, and the keys are too small for my fat fingers, but we'll give it a shot if we can. Here's the tune. Sorry, a couple things on that. And it's, of course, the Olympic fanfare. And what we've had this week is really an Olympian style event, I think. I feel personally like I did a decathlon. There have been so many things to see and hear, and you know, my brain feels like it's going to explode several times, but it's in a good way. There's so many great presentations we had. I want to go back and visit them. You know, we started out with Dr. Rucker and with this conference that was very focused on the activities in the US on the final rules. And they're very critical in the lifetime of fire, but I think that they're going to also give a spur to activity around the world. And that's one of the things we want to see. We had, you know, 4 incredibly powerful and moving presentations from Dave's Patient Innovator track. We had 5 extremely polished startup sessions. Every one of those apps really impressed me a tremendous amount, and really too many presentations to highlight. I do want people to remember Graham more than what I'm saying, but I also go back to Sarah. I'll be thinking about what she said. And today it was Erica, and you know, Erica gives, one of the great things about this conference is how we try to bring in things that open up your thinking and just broaden the horizons, which is so important to fire. She's another one that I just finished her book late last night, but I wrote down several things too. But one of the things I remembered, and I didn't get this quite right, but if you want to play with language, you have to let go of perfection and get people to use it. And that would be a pretty good slogan to apply to fire in general. That's what you as a community have done. You're out there, you're making things happen. We're seeing things going on in our very eyes that's really changing the way the world goes. And, you know, I personally am very proud of having worked with the HL7 and the Firely team and helping make this together. It really exceeded my expectations. It was a hell of a good time. You know, the Olympic closing ceremony always ends with passing the torch to the next host city. And so final words are, you know, hope to see you all and many, many more of your colleagues somehow in Amsterdam in about 6 months or so. And here's a toast to all of us, to fire, and to all the people who are going to benefit from fire. Cheers. And that's all, folks. Off to the follow-up party.